Guys, good evening to you. President Trump made a number of visits to Detroit during the campaign, including speaking before the Detroit Economic Club. And now, commerce and economic leaders here are hoping that the new administration will deliver on their promises and help this city.
A major announcement from Fiat Chrysler with big implications for the Bourne assembly plant. The automaker says it will make a huge investment, creating thousands of jobs and giving bonuses to its workers.
And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator.
So I'm here in Warren, Michigan right now. I'm off of 8 Mile and Mound. Right behind me is the Chrysler assembly plant. And, you know, I watch the news, I stay up on the news cycle. And Eminem has had a lot to say about Donald Trump. You know, I'm not the type of person to just avidly defend another grown man or anything like that. Typically just leave these things to themselves, but, you know, I wish he would remember where he came from. You know, this is a message for him, because his lambasting and unsupportiveness of our president seems to be something that's really decadent to me. That seems to be something, those are opinions that are reserved for people that are of a decadent lifestyle. This plant behind me, my mother worked at this plant for years. She was laid off multiple times, and she retired from Chrysler recently after having a few heart attacks, you know? So I'm from a Chrysler family, and they're bringing back thousands of jobs right here to this plant. They're bringing back jobs to this area. And for Eminem to be critical of our president, whose policies have started this and created this sort of climate, this business climate, to where a large corporation would bring back this sort of industry to Detroit, I find it to be very, very saddening. I think he's out of touch, man. And I mean that in the most respectful way, man. I don't want to disrespect anybody that's from the same soil, you know? But I think he needs to check himself, man. I don't know what Donald Trump has said to offend anybody in the city of Detroit, but he surely hasn't offended me at all. You know? People don't understand certain economics, just simple economics. You know? You drop the corporate tax rate, corporations are going to be more apt to doing business in the area where the taxes are lowest. So then they can pull bigger profits and create more industry. If trickle-down economics didn't work, then explain to me what's going to stop somebody from being taxed 100%. What's the incentive to do business if you're taxed 100%? You think capitalism or people that start industry are just going to have to be naturally altruistic? See, this is the failure of socialism.
When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think a communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us.
Well,
I don't even trust you to do that.
In the 30s, 40s, 50s, Detroit was the most prosperous city in the country. Some people say in the world. And it's been these policies that have been put in place. I don't necessarily just want to say democratic policies. I would say progressive policies, because not all Democrats are liberal and not all Republicans are conservative. But the fact of the matter is the policies are what hurt people. When you have things that break families up, when you have a system that places the interest of the unions over the interest of the students so that you have deteriorating schools, when you have administrations that pile on all kinds of regulations. You know, for a small manufacturer, the annual cost to deal with just regulations for one employee is $34,000. Now,
Wow.
How in the world are you going to be able to compete with other nations under those circumstances? And it seems like we're just doing things to destroy what used to be a vibrant city. And this has happened across the country. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in those situations have been fooled into believing that the very people who are doing this to them are their saviors and their heroes.
I wish you could have some really profound political opinion and insight and explain your position as to why you don't like him. But you can't. A lot of people only hate Trump for the same reasons they hate people like, you know, Justin Bieber or Nickelback or some shit like that, you know? It's not real, man. It's just a trendy thing for them to do. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, man.